Today's country lies in northeastern Africa and is famous for its ancient civilization, the Nile River, and Mohammed Salah. Get ready for our next stop around the world, Egypt. This happened to me when I was a young adult. It was 1985, and I was preparing to fly back home to Cairo from a business trip I had in Greece. The trip didn't go as planned, so I was completely exhausted and really looking forward to relaxing and enjoying the Sunday with my boyfriend. I was annoyed because before the plane even took off, I could hear arguing behind me. I turned around and saw a man yelling at one of the flight attendants because he was instructed to move his briefcase that was in the middle of the aisle. He finally relented and the quiet returned. I reclined my seat for the 3-hour flight, and we finally departed from Athens. Not even 10 minutes after takeoff, my peace was again disrupted, although this time by several men shouting. I quickly jerked my body to see what was going on and saw the men waving guns and grenades in the air. They were pointing them at passengers to scare everybody and take control of the plane. A man standing in the aisle and shouted that they were part of the Egyptian revolution and that the aircraft was being hijacked. I was frozen in my seat with fear and thought that would be my last day on Earth. There wasn't anything I could do except comply and not stand out from anyone else. I was completely helpless. The hijackers started to check everybody's passports and instructed me to move to the back of the plane. As I moved to the back, I noticed everyone seated around me was either Egyptian or Greek, while people in the front of the plane were either American, Australian, or Israeli. I then knew that this had to be some kind of national demonstration to the world, and it would likely not end well for anybody. Gunfire eventually broke out with people screaming and ducking behind their seats. I later found out there was an air marshal on the flight, and he pulled a gun from his coat when acting like he was grabbing for his passport. The man, a hijacker, and a flight attendant were all shot during the shootout. The plane started to quickly descend, causing the oxygen mask to be deployed. It was incredibly difficult to breathe, and the chaos was unbelievable. Every thought raced through my mind. Were the pilots shot? Were the hijackers crashing the plane? A bullet from the shootout pierced the fuselage and was the reason for the rapid descent so that we wouldn't suffocate in the cabin. The hijackers continued to point their firearms at us until we landed, but I could tell it was not in Cairo. Someone next to me whispered that they thought we landed in Malta, which I had heard of, but I had no idea where it was. The suspense and the unknown may have been worse than the initial fear of the hijack, because nobody knew what was next or what the main goal of the hijacking was. All we could do was pray. I couldn't really see that well since I was in the back, but a terrorist with a passport in his hand called out, "Tamar Artsi." A young Israeli woman rose and willingly walked towards the cockpit, but was instantly shot and thrown out into the tarmac. A rapid succession of gunfire ensued towards the tarmac at the woman. Since only one person was killed, it was clear we were now hostages. I know it sounds horrible to say, but I was extremely grateful I am Egyptian and that I may not be shot solely because of my nationality. 15 minutes passed and the terrorist called out, "Nitzan Mendelsohn." This time, the poor woman was unwilling to step forward and was repeatedly hit by the terrorist. She too was shot and thrown onto the tarmac. Another 15 minutes later, 3 more names were called out and shuffled to the front. An American man, Patrick Baker, was shot and thrown onto the tarmac. 15 minutes later, an American woman, Scarlett Rogenkamp, was knelt down and shot and thrown onto the tarmac. Another 15 minutes later, the killings finally ceased. Many hours passed, and the sun eventually rose when an American woman, Jackie Flug's name, was called. She was turned around and shot and thrown onto the tarmac. After endless hours of panic and unrest, the sun set and it was again nighttime. An ear-piercing explosion erupted under the plane and destroyed the fuselage, blowing smoke and fire into the cabin. A firefight ensued between Egyptian soldiers and the terrorists, all while innocent people were suffering from burns and smoke inhalation while trying to cover from straying bullets. I lay down as low as possible, closed my eyes, and covered my face with my shirt, but was still choking from the smoke. The firefight eventually came to an end, and besides the years of trauma I faced after this, the worst was finally over. The goal of the hijack was to negotiate for fuel to fly to an unknown location, although it's speculated Libya was the destination. What the terrorists' goals after that is still unknown. All but one terrorist were killed alongside 58 innocent people, mostly from smoke asphyxiation by the poorly executed plan from the Egyptian soldiers. I was one of the lucky 30 passengers that walked away with their lives. One of the passengers previously mentioned, Jackie Flug, miraculously survived and provides a magnificent account of her story. Her book is called Miles to Go Before I Sleep, and I highly recommend you check it out. I was in university when this happened. My friends and I are avid photographers, and all agreed to enroll in the same photography class together. Our class was assigned a final project where we had to construct an interpretive collage of a topic of our choosing. I immediately thought about this abandoned warehouse that caught fire 5 years ago. Unfortunately, the fire took a few victims before it was extinguished. Because of this, it was a perfect setting for a horror-themed collage. It wasn't that far from my house, and I've driven past it a few times, so I knew exactly how to get there. The only problem was that it was illegal to be on the premises of the property, and I could go to jail if I was caught. My only option was to go at night, which was actually perfect because the darkness meant I would be forced to use my camera's flash and would only add to my project's aesthetic. My mind was made up and nothing was going to stop me at this point. Because of a concern for my safety rather than fear, I asked my friend Ahmed if he would join me in my trip. We struck some stupid deal that I would have to drive and ask this girl in our class if she would go out to dinner with him. Anyways, we hung out at my house playing FIFA, waiting for the night to arrive. When my parents finally fell asleep, I grabbed my keys and we left for the warehouse. After almost totaling my car, we eventually arrived, and I wouldn't be lying if I said I was starting to have second thoughts. The warehouse was completely different at night. Shocker, right? It was completely dark outside, even with the light pollution, so I knew the inside would be pitch black. There was also a really eerie vibe about the place, like someone or something was watching us. The doors were all boarded up, so we had to break a window and climb in that way. Ahmed sliced his arm open from the broken glass, so of course I had to take a picture of his bleeding arm for my collage. He pleaded that we leave because he was in a lot of pain, but I threatened not to talk to the girl he liked, so he relented. We weren't going to be there for long anyways. I started by taking pictures of stuff I thought would fit in well for the project. The broken window, the burnt wall, and the dusty couch. We walked up the stairs to check out the second floor and see what else I could add. It was completely empty compared to the first floor, except for the random wooden planks and other burnt objects I couldn't identify. It was also pretty dangerous because some of the random holes in the floor that we could fall through with one wrong step. Ahmed called out to me and told me to check something out. He found a candy wrapper and an empty water bottle in the corner, and it appeared completely new and undamaged. This creeped both of us out, so we made a mutual decision that it was time to go back to my house. We were starting to walk back down to the first floor when we heard a loud metallic bang beneath us. We both jumped and stared into each other's eyes, not knowing what to do. I told Ahmed that an old pipe probably fell or something. We tiptoed down the stairs with our backs to the wall, hoping to get out of the building as soon as possible. Ahmed randomly asked me to repeat myself, but I didn't say anything. He said I whispered something to him, but I assured him I did not. Simultaneously, we both turned around to see someone tiptoeing down the stairs directly behind us. The fear locked my knees in place, so Ahmed literally pushed me down the stairs to get away from this person. We jumped out of the window we previously broke and sprinted to my car. Just like in the horror movies, I fumbled my keys and struggled to unlock the car door because of the pure panic I was experiencing. We leapt into my car and I sped out of the parking lot without looking behind me. The ride home was silent because we were so scared and still in shock with what just happened. We made it back to my house without any issues and did not sleep until the next morning. I still have no idea what this person was doing at the abandoned warehouse or why they were sneaking up on us. If only I snapped a picture of them, I would have created the best collage the world has ever seen. My daughter and I planned to visit our city's main shopping center on the weekend to celebrate her finishing primary school. I saved up some money for a few months and wanted to gift her some clothes or whatever she wanted to buy for her hard work that she's given over the years. The bus picked us up early in the morning and took us straight to the shopping center where we would spend the entire day. While on the bus though, I noticed a dirty-looking man that kept staring at me from head to toe with a slight smirk on his face. He was seated one row behind me on the opposite side of the bus, but I could still feel his gaze through my peripheral vision. This made me feel uneasy, but the bus was fully packed, so I wasn't scared, just really uncomfortable. As we stood up to step off the bus, the man made sure to stand right behind me and press his body so close to mine that we were touching. I tried my best to move up as much as possible, but he followed and moved up with me. I was grossed out and quickly walked into the mall with my daughter. I purposely weaved into a crowd of people to try and lose the man, and luckily succeeded. The next few hours were filled with fun and draining my wallet, but I was happy as long as my daughter was happy. Although I was having a good time, I couldn't help but look around every now and then to ensure the man was not nearby. It started to get late, and I had to get home to cook for my husband, so we left before visiting all the stores we wanted to see. With a large group of people, we got onto the next bus home. This time, there were no creepy men staring at me or touching me, so at last I was relaxed. Looking back, I think this put my radar down, which I would come to later regret. Our stop came up, and as soon as I took the last step off the bus, I couldn't move. Sitting there on a bench directly in front of me was the same man from earlier. He was looking at the ground, I guess to try and poorly disguise his face from me, like I wouldn't notice him. The people behind me grew tired of me standing there, so they nudged my daughter and I forward onto the street. We now had to walk a kilometer to the apartment building with this man on our tail. Like before, my daughter and I did a speed walk to lose the guy, but this time we didn't have a crowd on our side. I turned around, and to my horror, the man slowly rose to his feet and walked towards our direction. I didn't know if I should turn into an alley where we could potentially lose him, or if we should stay on the main street where there were more cars and people. I decided staying out where there would be witnesses was the safest option, even if I felt completely helpless. Every time I turned around, he would be several meters closer, like he would run up when I wasn't looking. I took what may have been my 5th or 6th glance behind me when I couldn't see him anymore. My daughter suggested he turned around or was innocently walking back to his place, but I could tell something was off. My suspicions were confirmed when I found him on the other side of the street trying to camouflage into the darkness. Our speed walk was now a full jog, as I calculated we could make it back to the building in under 5 minutes this way. I screamed to leave us alone, but the man just kept his pace across the street. He kept the same distance behind us, around 20 meters, and we thankfully reached the apartment building unharmed. We ran inside, and the doors automatically locked behind us. I took one last glance outside and saw him standing motionless in the middle of the street. I don't know if this guy was trying to be intimidating, if he was just a creep, or if he had mental problems. I told my husband everything that just happened, but he didn't seem to care. Let's just say we aren't together anymore. Anyways, at the time I thought I was safe, until the next morning, I realized this creep now knew exactly where I lived and could hatch whatever plan he had in mind. Luckily, I haven't seen him since, but I've heard neighbors talk about a mysterious man lying on the sidewalk outside the building at night. I'm thinking about moving properties, both because of this incident and my new marital status. That was genuinely the worst night of my life.